Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sophia Wardell, and today we have a very special guest, best-selling fantasy author Sara Knightley. Sara Knightley has a background in marketing and is now a full-time indie author. Sara is the author of the Everlight series, and her books have been selected by Barnes& Noble as a top indie favorite. Thanks for joining us today, Sara.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are so excited to have you here, and today I would like to discuss with you about selling your books. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you get selected as a Barnes and Noble top indie author?
Yeah, that was a surprise. And I don't think you can, try to make that happen. So I just got an email, I think about a month after my book launched, that from the New York office that said you've been selected. And I was like so excited about it. And I do have my books on Barnes and Noble as just like directly on there. But I think if I had to guess what happened, I was using NetGalley, which is a site that traditional publishing uses to put new books out, to get ARC readers reading them, to get booksellers, librarians. And so I found a co-op that I was able to join as an indie author, and I put my book on for about a month. And so it was like 2 weeks before it came out, and then 2 weeks after, to kind of collect like the most reviews you could. And I remember like a couple Barnes and Noble booksellers requested it through there. And like Books A Million did, and then some other bookstores and librarians, which was really cool. And so if I had to guess, I think it was probably one of those booksellers that read it. And then they just their Barnes and Noble is super friendly to indie authors. And I think they like really want to push you, which is really nice. And so I think it was just like a list where they said they hand selected it. So I'm sure one of those people read it and sent it in to somebody, which was amazing. So, and then they did the same thing for Castle Everdark, which was awesome.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic. So just getting your
yeah.
book out onto all those platforms is very beneficial.
Yeah, I would say NetGalley is probably where it happened for sure,
Mm.
which was
Yeah,
new to me when I was an indie author. Like I didn't know about it till I started researching sort of all the things traditional publishing was using, and I wanted to do exactly the same thing. So it was just really lucky I kind of found a co-op that would let indie authors in to do it.
great. Okay, NetGalley. Well, we'll take a note of that.
Yeah.
And I want to transition and discuss a little bit about Amazon because there's so much hype all the time around it. And I want to know, what are some of your main tips for an author trying to sell on Amazon as well?
Yeah, Amazon is big, and I would say probably more of my sales come from Amazon, which is awesome. They're super easy to use. They're super friendly. Every time I've like kind of had a question, they've been really great. For selling, I feel like, and I know it's sort of redundant to say it, but having your book look good, like having your blurb,
Mm,
having your cover, having you should look as indistinguishable from traditionally published books. And like we've all seen kind of like the book that looks like someone did it, you know what I mean? And
right.
and that's not usually the one people pick, and even though you love that book and you love that cover, it's like you have to think marketing of what is going to appeal to everybody. And your book, they're just tiny little listings, and they have all the books, and so your book's going to be right next to a traditional published book. And so the person's going to say, well, maybe yours is interesting, but then, oh, this caught my eye, and then they click and they go and they'll pick what's better for them. So
Right.
having your book be ready, like you don't necessarily have to be ready as an author, but your book has to be ready, and it has to look ready for the market of whatever market, you're trying to sell through, whatever genre. It has to match it. And it has to sound like something that would be interesting to read. So
Right.
that's like my number one tip. And A+ content is really huge. And that's where, if you scroll down a little, there's a place where you can kind of put graphics that sell your book even more. And that's huge. And Amazon indexes that and will push like listings that has that more. So that's like really important to have. And
Oh,
so if you
that's
don't know how to
great.
do that, go find a traditionally published book that is similar to yours and see what their page looks like and make your page match theirs. So
I think that's a great point. The marketability is so important. And even if you can just transition a little bit to what the market may want more and then still keep on your
mhm.
brand.
Right.
And and I want to talk a little bit about your website because I think your website is fabulous. And it
Thank
looks like there's a
you.
lot of work and design put into it. And
Yeah.
why would you say it's important to have quick links like you do to all your retail, like all your books and everything on the website?
Yeah, well, I have a little bit of a marketing background, And so I remember hearing that, if your customer has to click 3 times, you've lost them. Like they're
Mm.
not going to just kind of click and try to find you and be like, is that you? Is this your book? So having like, and you can talk yourself out of a purchase really easy. So maybe they came to your website and they're looking and it's like, this sounds really great. Let me buy it. And so they click. And then they're thinking about everything else or something else pops up and you've sent them down this rabbit hole of trying to find you, you've lost them, So if
Right.
you have a link where it's like, and here it is, and they could just buy it before they start second guessing themselves, before something else came through to sell to them, like you pretty much have them. So if you're doing, your job, you just have to make it as easy as possible for them to buy your book.
Right, exactly. And how do you set up those quick links?
Well, I distribute through Drafted Digital, and they give you, it's called, I think, Books to Read. If you just like click at the top, and they kind of set up a page for you with all those links. And so that's what I have. So they click from my website once to that page, and it has every distributor that I am on. So if they're like, well, I don't buy through Amazon, I buy through Barnes and Noble, so they just
Mhm.
go click that and they're there at your page. So I
Right.
set up through Drafted Digital, but there are like other landing pages you can buy that you have all your links. I think like Linktree is one that you can do that if you're not on Drafted Digital, and you can like set that up really easy too.
Yeah. Okay, great. And the last
Mhm.
question I want to ask about selling your books is, do you collect and keep track of all your pre-orders?
I don't. I think that's really important in traditional publishing, and they use that to market, you know, how much money they're going to give for you to push a book and how long they're
Mm.
going to push a book and if there's interest. And I think being an indie author, it's like, well, I'm not going to stop pushing my book after a month. Like I know
Right.
it's not going to live or die on launch day. I'm going to continue to get it out there. And so pre-orders are amazing, but at the same time, like I'm not going to hit any lists on pre-orders because I wasn't in bookstores too. So like if you want to hit New York Times, you have to be in bookstores and have all these orders to do it. Well, that wasn't my market. You know what I mean? So for me, I
Right.
could kind of relax on pre-orders and just concentrate on putting it everywhere for ARC readers to get, and just get as much buzz as I could as an indie author. And but yeah, Barnes and Nobles gives you paperback options to do pre-orders. Amazon does ebook. I think if you go through Ingram Spark, you can put a hardcover up on Amazon, but you lose a little bit in that process. They take a chunk, everyone takes a chunk. So yeah, I didn't worry too much about pre-orders with these two. And maybe I will in the future, but yeah, I just didn't need to.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for that great insight on how to sell your book effectively.
Thank you.
Lastly, where can our listeners find and connect with you?
My website, SaraKnightleyBooks.com, or I'm on Instagram, which is at Sara Knightley Books. And you can find me other places, but those are like the two places I really or email. You can always email me. Yeah.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into today's interview with best-selling fantasy author Sara Knightley. Be sure to check out our website for more videos. Wishing you all a fulfilling and successful writing journey.